primarily extending the dialogue because I may vote no on this new motion, although I think it's thoughtful and a move in the right direction. I'm not sure. I have some questions. People will help me. And then if I do vote no, there'll be a better understanding for my folks back home as to why I've done so. First question for presenter, and I'm so sorry I forget your name. I know your face so well. I appreciate the hard work that you've done on the presentation this morning. You talked about the quarterly updates. What have we spent to date, ballpark, do you estimate, in coming through the 20 over the last 2 years? And I mean ballpark. I know I'm putting you on the spot, so I mean real range bound I can accept.
$5 million.
Thank you.
And that includes the traffic analysis, all the environmental work, and our program management, so it's all inclusive.
So I agree with Director Spitzer that when he talks about not spending another dime, the anxiety, it's very, very real, it's very powerful for people in their communities. But the concern I have about the motion is that we're just failing to rip off the Band-Aid. And I think today is the day we should rip off the Band-Aid. I really do. There's 2 or 3 areas that are so obvious at this point. I would suggest that the problem we have is we are trying to morph into a planning agency, and we're not equipped to do it. And it's visible, just today, it's visual evidence of that. We should have come to this meeting out of strategic planning committee, like-minded, coordinated, with thoughtful analysis of routes today and answers to questions the public have been asking for a long time, and we're not. And I think the fundamental problem is we're trying to morph into a planning agency. And then we get the letter from the chair of, according to him, the widely acknowledged planning agency, and I'm perplexed by it. I appreciate CEO Craman's attempts to, put it neutral with him, but what my sense of that is, CEO Craman, is that we took his letter and we kind of said, you don't need to be worried just yet. And this is very, very similar to my field. It's amazing the parallels, really. We're the brass section trying to be the orchestra leader, and this is the confusion it leads to, and it's going to overlap projects and studies, and it's going to waste taxpayer money. And to Director Spitzer's point, when we're spending money, we're spending money that we should be judicial. He's come through the dark days. I didn't. I just came through this 2 years ago. But I think whenever we talk about questionable spending, we should view it as taxpayer money, not toll-payer money. And the reason I say that is the maintenance has been paid for years. It's in the hundreds of millions. It includes 5 bridges in San Francisco that had to get thrown in to get the bill passed back in the 80s. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars. And our taxpayers are still paying it through the state highway fund, through their gas taxes. So whenever we look at questionable spending, and this dialogue is indicative of the undeniable fact that this is at the very least spending that's giving people angst and a process that's giving people angst, so I would lump it in that category. It is certainly discretionary spending for an agency that was tasked with getting the 241 to the 5 south of San Clemente, and nothing more, at least to this date, by any authority that's broadly legislated that I'm familiar with. But I want to give you an opportunity to clarify. So in Chairman Johnson's letter, he says a few things, and I would just like to see how far off base we are with the collaboration. And maybe we're not off base at all, because you often educate me on things, Mike, that I'm grateful for and speak to your experience. But he says the Orange County Transportation Authority believes the TCA staff recommendation is premature given the outstanding issues that we have been raising for more than a year. My question is, what are those issues? Because you don't address them in your response to him.
I think the issues that I'm hoping to resolve are ones that we were hoping that through the preliminary process leading up to this, that we'd be able to provide some of the clarity to the alternatives and the purpose and need of the project, and reduce the number of alternatives that we're studying. The concern that OCK has had is that we're carrying too many alternatives. So in the PSR, which there's debate whether we were able to reduce alternatives in that process or not. It came back to us from Caltrans in the process, and I'll let the director comment on that, that the preference is that that would not be the appropriate place to do that. The preference is to do that in this first phase of the PAED phase, where there is a public input component of that in the official process that we're going into. So, Jerry,
You've had public input for 2 years.
He's answered you may go ahead. He's answered my question. You may go ahead if you think it's important.
Just to emphasize, the PSR TDS process is what this is, right? And we need to do that to sharpen our pencils through the process. Thank you.
You just did.
You just did it.
His next question is, the primary concern is that there is a clear conflict between OCTA's existing projects that have either been recently completed or set to begin. What are those projects? What do you suggest are the clear conflicts?
So that would refer to the recently completed construction of the HOV lane on the I-5, the anticipated project for additional improvements to the I-5, and the study that they have a PSR-only funding to study an HOV lane from Pico to the county line. And I think you'll see in my response that it's pretty clear that all of those needs that the I-5 have at the end of this bubble, if you will, we have to have a clear understanding between Caltrans, OCTA, and TCA about what the best path forward is for the I-5 corridor.
How about tax
He
base?
says, as we have said multiple times, regional traffic projections based on adopted demographic forecasts do not justify the construction of a 4-lane toll facility in the median of I-5 south of Evans and Pico. Now, they've done a 200-page study of long-term transportation in Orange County, paid for by the taxpayers. What is he basing that on? What is he speculating there? Because obviously he's talking about the 14 and landing in the middle. So he seems adamantly opposed. And can you give me some color on that?
I think his concern is that the level of traffic analysis that will be performed in the next phase is much more detailed than, as Dave described it, the high level of traffic that occurred in the PSR. Again, it's an administrative document that Caltrans uses to program their resources for the next phase, and that there's a desire by OCTA to, as there is by us, to get very clear answers on what would be the need of the project, and that is what is one of the major components of the next phase in determining which alternatives are carried forward.
He speaks past tense, as we have said multiple times. They've clearly studied this. They clearly clearly speak to some of this in our long-range plan. There's a clear disconnect there.
Yeah,
I understand your point.
I think there is ongoing concern about what that is. I know in their PSR for the HOV lane from Pico to the county line that there's ongoing discussions and concerns there as well. So very similar in this piece of highway that both agencies have, as does Caltrans, with Caltrans really being the lead for that.
And a couple more on our way to wrapping up. He says, as the designated transportation commission for Orange County, which is responsible for determining and approving the location and capacity of state highway projects, OCTA regularly prepares long-range plans in coordination with Caltrans and the Southern California Association of Governments. The alternative TCA is proposing to advance for environmental review of the asphalt corridor are not included in OCTA's adopted plans or are identified in any approved regional plans. My question is, is the OCTA the designated transportation commission for Orange County? If they are, can you explain to me the process that awards them that distinction?
That is correct. They are the designated transportation commission for Orange County, and that's in Public Utilities Code. I don't know the exact citation for that, but that's in that.
Thank you.
Then what the hell are you guys doing?
I'm done on my questions. Thank you. I appreciate you illuminating that a little bit. for my purpose, and this goes back to ripping the Band-Aid off, may I ask, what, the process that has been alluded to in terms of trying to get more clarity, are we out of money to do it? Are our consultants at the end of their string?
Our contracts are expiring, and so we need to.
When are our contracts expiring?
December 31st of this year. So we need to extend the term, and then, we need
Money
to
grab.
authorize, contract authority to have them complete this work. And again, this, based on substitute motion, would be limited just to doing the alternatives analysis and the scoping, which would be 2 reports to come back to the board to narrow down the alternatives for consideration.
Come
We
on.
have that information before spending additional dollars on the detailed technical studies.
It's
I'm
ridiculous.
sorry, can you repeat that last part?
The, first phase would come to the board as a scoping report and alternative screening report. So before spending additional dollars to do technical studies on all the alternatives, the board would have the opportunity to look at the reduced set of alternatives that would be
Reduce
not
them
subject to
now.
the detailed technical studies.
For 3 to 5 million?
Well, we have to go come to the board, but right now, we need, $5 million to do the scoping and alternative screening report.
I have to come back to ripping the Band-Aid off.
We
Because
can help you.
This is what happens when the brass section tries to be the orchestra leader. I mean, and we are the brass section. I mean, we're the section. We can put bonds in the marketplace, and Wall Street will suck them up without any equity because of the connection to the state and the fact that we're a quasi-agency, quasi-governmental agency. Although we didn't use a nickel of it, I'm sure Wall Street was comforted years ago when we got the federal loan guarantees. That's what gives us the power, but it also gives us the responsibility, because we have the power to take people's homes, their churches, their businesses, to forever change their family legacies, their memories, their history. It's extremely powerful, and I think we're using that carelessly. And I've been watching it for 2 years, and it obviously there is threat to my community, but I would feel this way in my gut whether there was or not. This isn't prudent. Somewhere we have made a philosophical shift from needs-based, where you would rely on appropriate planning agencies. I mean, you should see the reports, the planning report that the TCA, the LCTA did, and the Southern California Regional Plan. They include all the modes of transportation. They take into account what the public has been saying for months about modes of transportation and automation and so forth. They're equipped to do it. We are not. And I feel that we're shifting from a needs-based to a revenue base, and that's dangerous because AB 194 may give us the right to build other freeway lanes, but it requires that the primary pursuit can't be revenue. So even the hybrid becomes a question mark. I'm concerned that we haven't had either Mr. Johnson or anybody would speak, I think, from his office suite, so to speak, in subcommittee. I'm concerned that we haven't really worked at some of the things that are now coming up in subcommittee. We have electeds that would have to play a role in tweaking legislation that have expressed adamant opposition. We can all be cynical and say, well, it's the silly season, but one of them was a former chair. And it talks about dissolving a TCA. We can't ignore that. At the very least, they should be part of the planning process and part of the subcommittees, which to date have not been terribly productive in the typical institutional planning committee sense way. And there is a point where the responsibility rests with the board. And this is one of these moments. It really does. It really is. This is a big step, whether it's 3 to 5 million or 16 million, because you can double the numbers. We know that. And I'm not being cynical. It's just a fact. When it comes to government work, you can double the numbers, roughly. I mean, we've seen it in our own situation where we're roughly double the debt load of what it costs to build the roads. And that's nobody's fault. That's just a byproduct of government work. But it does mean that we can think we've got cash to burn, but I assure you we do not. And we have been tremendously benefited by historically low interest rates for a sustained period of time and a mini economic explosion, especially amongst the upper middle class, which is wanting to get on the toll road. So we're not flush, and we're perpetuating a process. I mean, we have a woman here today who comes to every meeting and sacrifices, whatever she sacrifices with her family, and would be impacted by 9 or 18, 1 to 4% relief with 0 redundancy relief. That's comical. that's criminally stupid to advance. I'm sorry, and I don't mean that personally. It's just, it's sad, really. I mean, it's just bad government. We can talk about the process, but this is the process now. And I would substitute an amendment with the chair's acquiescence that we go back to committee with it. We have some time. We can put people on very brief extensions. We go back to committee and really do the work in committee we should be doing. And encourage you to bring in Darrell Johnson to the process, to bring into their planning elements to the process, to bring in some of our electeds who we may need to rely on, and do the work that clearly, as has been on display for the last two hours, with exception to staff and some of our great consultants, has not been done with the right direction and clarity. Thank you for indulging me.